Yeah.
It is interesting. I think, I kind of see over the years, I've seen a pendulum swinging, and I'll pitch this to you, and you comment on it and tell me, no, you're crazy, or you're right, or somewhere in between. So in the beginning days of what we now call business as mission, or B4T, or it has 25 different labels. Doesn't really matter. It's just integrated living. All of my life under the lordship
Hmm.
of Christ,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Right.
it's really
Right.
that simple. But from the early days, those of us who were using business and walking in business, both domestically and internationally, and seeing doors open and seeing disciples made and seeing uh, closed societies penetrate in what I would say is a legitimate way, um, we were kind of the outsiders looking in to the broader Christian community. And that's not just in North America, that seemed to be a Western thing. Certainly saw it in the UK and Canada and other places. So we were kind of looking, we were outside. I say we were outside we weren't in the treehouse. We were outside wishing we could be up where everybody else is. And then I've seen the pendulum over the years where it's almost the other way around. It's almost like the businesses mission groups have become so tight and so animated and so passionate and so excited about what they're doing. You mentioned FDI and FDE and BAM Global and Business for Transformation and all of the different things. These are very, very um, energized, passionate communities. The support is incredible. The fellowship is incredible. The resources are growing. And sometimes, from my cheap seat, Steve, it looks like the church is now on the outside of the treehouse, wishing they could come in, which is just as wrong. Uh,
Hmm.
so I'm looking at this thinking, okay, if we could ever, like all pendulums, if we could ever find that place where it's all working together, it would be fantastic. Uh, I don't think we're there yet. I think we have a long way to
Yeah.
go. What would you say? Um, Two questions, I guess, two parts of one question. What would you say to passionate Christian business leaders who are not feeling the support from their local church and they're just kind of out there doing it on their own? They're connected to like a C12 group or a convene group or FDE group, or they're finding what they need so that they can serve Christ and walk with Christ in the marketplace. What would you say to them that they need to work on? And then the flip question is going to be, what would you say to pastors? What would you say to church leaders and mission leaders to they need to work on that we could hopefully get some sort of true partnership that I think would be more honoring to Christ, frankly.
Yeah. I mean, it starts with communication, I think. I mean, pastors, I mean, in their defense, they weren't trained in business and they're like, well, how am I going to help these guys in the marketplace? So,
Hmm.
we have to help them get over that and just even start a conversation between these groups. And one group that you didn't mention there, but I think you may have heard some of the discussion starting to happen about the blue collar workers.
Yeah.
A lot of this is going right up past them. And it's talking about the CEOs and the entrepreneurs and so on. And the blue collar workers are like, this doesn't apply to me, and so that's another community that we need to
What
engage in.
what a great point. You're exactly right. Um, so keep going on that, but you make a great point. I don't want to let that slide by like I didn't hear it. I heard it, and I agree
Yeah.
with you.
No, I don't know. I hate to say it. Back in those early days, I was doing conferences, I think everywhere, all over. And I don't feel well equipped for that. And it was like, why is God calling me all over the place? But there just frankly weren't that many people like yourself out there. And there was a season where God was like, no, I need you out there. But uh, these events at churches where you can just have a Dwight Nordstrom or someone, a Mike Baer, come in and challenge the whole congregation and get them to start thinking in new ways and changing the conversation instead of just you know business is great because they need the Lord in there, and you can share the gospel while you're in your cubicle. Well,
Hmm.
that's such a limited view of business as ministry. So I think, yeah, it's we need, and maybe, yeah, I don't know how effective online conferences are. I think I told you I haven't been a big fan of those, but that might be the way to do it. Uh,
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we do have, for example, by the time this episode comes out, it will be past, but we have coming up the BAM Global, annual summit, which what used to be in person. The original was in Chiang Mai. The second one was scheduled 7 years later for 2020, and obviously it did not happen because of COVID. And so they went in 2021, they went virtual. Everybody, the whole world went virtual there for a while, but they've stayed virtual. And I see that as a mixed bag. I see a lot of people able to attend that wouldn't, pastors, I'm thinking of one in particular, a friend of mine from Cameroon. He'll be there virtually. He can't get there physically. Many like that. And many business people, same way. So there's a coming together, but it's not the same. And you and I think would agree that even though we enjoy each other and we're having a good conversation online, it's pretty real. It wouldn't be the same as us sitting down, and I'll go where you are. I'll come to Hershey, Pennsylvania anytime and have a cup
Good.
of coffee with you. Uh, but it's just different, right? So we are missing that. And how do we get it to be real? But so communication is vital. I certainly agree with that. And I love what you said about encouraging pastors to get out, at least some get out to where your people work. And it isn't just the CEOs. Go to, to the degree you can, go and see what your forklift operators are doing. Go, I mean, I know it's, you can't go pour steel, but you can still be there. Um, and you said something a minute ago, Steve. I just want to comment on this because I think it's vital. You went there, and I want to make sure our listeners catch it. I don't think I don't think pastors should think about, can I help somebody run their business better? Because they're not looking to a pastor. I was a pastor for 15 years and been in business with some overlap for about 40 years. And I didn't look to my pastor to help me with marketing or to help me solve a technology problem. I mean, not that they couldn't, they might, you never know. But that wasn't my expectation. What I was looking for is like, who is equipping me to walk with Jesus in the marketplace? That's, because if I'm doing that, disciple making will happen. And I think that's important for pastors listening. I hope there's some listening that nobody's asking you. And again, Steve, I'm pitching you a softball here. I want you to hit it out of the park. But nobody's asking the pastor to become a business expert. To be the shepherd to the business person, and that would be a game changer. Endorse their calling, equip their assignment, their gifting for their assignment. Um, how would you have that conversation with a pastor that might put him at ease a little bit? Because I do think they just don't because they're fearful they'll get in the way. And I don't think we view them that way at all.
yeah. Uh, Boy, I think that's the next book you and I have to write. Yes. And one specifically for pastors,
Yeah.
and because they're needed, we we all would love to have them side by side, in this, not necessarily like you said, pour and steel, but yeah, their wisdom and encouragement. I'll share one quick story. I told you about my trucking days. I was dispatching trucks cross country, and then there for a while I was running this company that was intrastate. It was just up and down the coast of California, and and what was happening? Reagan had just deregulated the transportation industry, and so people were allowed to. We used to have to publish our rates in advance and stick to these prices. Well, suddenly it was a dog eat dog,
Mm.
and but the state of California was still regulated, and so there's all these interstate truckers competing against me, and there's no way I could meet their price, legally. And I was a new Christian at the time. I'll use that as an excuse, I guess. It shouldn't be, but I mean, I started keeping separate books, I mean, that's just how it happens. And, I would have never at that point thought of talking to a pastor, and you don't expect a pastor to necessarily have a solution for that, but it's, you know, there's a lot of challenges, a lot of ethical issues out there and challenges that, you know, we can't do it alone. We need people to help.
What a great application though, right? Because it's not, again, it's there's the universals that go from sphere to sphere, whether you're a teacher or whether you're a pastor or whether you're an executive or whether you're a millwright, whatever those spheres may be, the life issues continue. Things like you just described, honesty, ethics. The one thing Scripture talks a lot about is unequal measures,
Mm.
unequal weights. I mean that's an ethical issue, right? So these these issues of truth and right and wrong and morality and honesty and character, those don't stop at the factory door. Those don't stop at the dispatcher's door. Those are literally, they go through walls. They go everywhere. And that's where I do think, I think you're right on, Steve. I think that's where pastors could and need to speak more, uh, sometimes more firmly, but certainly more confidently, because the average pastor knows the Word of God a whole lot better than the average
Mm.
worker. I mean, it doesn't matter where you spend your time. So they have insight, they have wisdom. They may not see everything rightly, but they have a perspective that we need in the marketplace. And that's my. It's interesting. I have a concern that as the business, and each one of these groups is doing the same thing. That whatever group you want to pick up, I'll say the business is mission world, but fill in the blank. The more we do, quote, on our own, um, the more in danger of going off course we are because we are not engaging with shepherds and pastor teachers, prophets, whatever way you want to view Ephesians 4, who have a function, a healthy God-given function in the body. And so there's a danger of going rogue, if you will. And I've seen that. You've seen that. I still see it. I'm certainly prone to that myself. And at the same time, I think the churches, when the pastors are not engaged in the real world, and I don't mean that as an insult, and I don't want somebody to say, well, it is the real world. I mean, I'm talking about when they're not engaged in the day-to-day world of the work, um, they may not be speaking to the questions that the congregation is needing to have addressed. I remember when I left the pastorate, I was in a church in Atlanta for a while as an attender, and I remember thinking, you know, during the sermon, I didn't mean this to be disrespectful, but I remember thinking, Lord, was I this irrelevant in my preaching? And it wasn't that it was inaccurate. It wasn't that it was unbiblical or anything like that. It was just, it didn't speak to the condition of the hearer. That's an old Spurgeon quote. Speak to the condition of your hearers. Well, it wasn't speaking to the condition of the hearers because we were sweating things like that. How do I deal with this inequality, this inequity in transportation rates? How do I deal with this? Versus, what is the meaning of this particular word in Hebrew? I mean, I don't make light of that, but I do think that's important.